welcome to the pit. So for the next hour, we're going to be going into performance statement writing with Senior Master Sergeant Scott Johnson. This is just a quick intro to introduce this professional development virtual session for you. I asked him to come on this platform for this because I've seen it taught and he teaches it really, really well. So enjoy.
My name is Scott Johnson. I will be walking you through performance statement writing today. Just a little bit of background about me. Currently, as we're recording this video, I am a squadron senior enlisted leader. I have operated also as a flight chief equivalent. We call it an aircraft maintenance superintendent. I do have a maintenance background. So some of the statements you might see examples of today will have maintenance. I think we do a pretty good job of expanding upon different other categories as well too. So you should see some various examples that apply to really any career field going across it. Really doesn't matter. I've been teaching writing since about 2015. So if we rewind the clock back to then, we're talking about bullets, which were action, impact, result, or action, result, impact, or result, action, impact. They're written various different ways. We know what the tongue and quill says for back then. You can actually go still look in a tongue and quill and find bullets. You won't find performance statement writing. Because at this point, the tongue and quill is meant to be a handbook. So it is a handbook. It's an Air Force handbook, AFH. So at this point, what it is if there's nothing else to use, then you have something. Then you have something to fall back on, right? Writing emails, constructing PowerPoints, all of the things that's inside the tongue and quill. A lot of people still kind of revert back to that when they're looking at bullets and or right now talking performance statements. However, last written revised Air Force handbook for tongue quill was 2015. We're now 2026. At the time performance statements kicked off, we're talking 2022, 2023. It's changed the game, kind of. So it's important to know when we look back at action, impact, result, the construct, right? The semicolon dash dash, that's all gone. The acronyms and abbreviations, that's all, well, gone kind of. And we'll talk about that as we get into the class. But what we didn't get away from is what did you do? How did you do it? And what was the impact or result in a standalone sentence? And we'll get into the definition of performance statement and we'll talk all about that as we go through this course. I've had the pleasure of being asked to teach 72 classes now, whether it be foundations courses or ALS classes. I've taught for a Joint Base Andrews ALS class. I've taught for Edwards Air Force Base ALS class. Numerous DAs, development advisors have reached out to have me teach courses all over the place, across MAJCOMs, wings, across the greater United States, and very fortunate enough to teach some OCONUS classes. So lots of classes, lots of experience. Even had an opportunity for a DA from Joint Base Anacostia Bowling reach out to me. We recorded a session of me teaching, and right now that video is up on YouTube. But this one's going to be on the brand new AFSA 365 Summit, and very excited for the first opportunity to go do that. But 1,700 views for that video. And then if you truly like what this course offers and you're looking for a little bit more, maybe some interaction going back and forth, I know how we all feel about CBT's computer-based training, but I can promise you, I do have a master's in education as a background. I do teach on the side, kind of, moonlighting for a second and third job per se. So I do have a well-versed experience in adult learning and helping students further understand through asynchronous or e-learning courses. So if you were to go into Precipio and you search performance statement writing, you're going to find two courses. The one that looks prettier is the one I'm going to recommend you to. Like I said, there is two. One was created in a PowerPoint, my first kind of rendition with some kind of content authoring tool, and then the second rendition, much more experience in platforms like this. So again, if you need something more, that's an option for you as well too. Now, I highlight awards board experience. Because of my maintenance background, I've written a lot of evaluations and a lot of awards inside of maintenance. Now, we all know that there's a plethora of awards out there, whether you are talking um, Infodom Awards, General Jumper Awards. Those are your comm folks. If you're talking Saigon or Tuskegee, Those are functional level awards across offered to any AFSC, as well as the General Larry O. Spencer Award. I've been a part of all of those. So it's not just a maintenance background I come from. I mentioned that before. Um, had the pleasure of looking across various different packages and finding things. One of the people that have reached out to me over the years was from medical. I've had the pleasure of helping her, and now she's a master sergeant because of her and I working back and forth on evaluations. And her commander kicked back saying hers was the easiest evaluation to read. She followed this structure to a T. I am not medical. I've already stressed that once. I'll keep stressing it throughout. However, we were able to convey a message that captured what she did, how she did it, what the impact or result was to make it a nice, fluid sentence that flowed well and had great readability. We'll talk about that here as one of our lessons as we get going through this course. But 33 squadron awards boards I've been a part of, 10 group boards. Now, when we look at groups, again, that's multiple different AFSCs that make up into those entities. Fortunate enough to be the board president for two of those, and I've sat on and been a part of seven wing boards. Again, plethora of AFSCs. Now, before I truly get going into this, I do think it's important to note that this course stemmed from black belt bullet writing. Mike Vitri, he retired, I'm sorry, separated as a major during the COVID era timeframe. So when COVID really kind of kicked off, I was fortunate enough to be a part of Sam Fox University, and I taught with Sam Fox University, and I developed, and I was one of the directors for courses and assembling of that stuff. And I invited Mike to come teach online, and we had over 3,000 views. Now, it's kind of a skewed number and a little bit. I'm going to say it. I'll be the first, again, first one to say it. During COVID, everyone was hungry for professional development, and we all had nothing to do. So it was very easy to go out and, get 3,000 views for a class. But we had it streamed across multiple platforms and did very well with a lot of exceptional feedback. Now, this course is derived from Mike's lessons and concepts. Now, when we switched to performance statements, again, that was built for bullets. We're talking 2018, 2019, 2020. When I reached out to Mike when we switched to performance statements, I said, "Hey, Mike, all of your lessons and concepts still apply. I would love to continue to keep carrying that torch and keep preaching the lessons that you've come up with and the conversations and all of that." He said, "Scott, I have separated. I don't care what you do with the material. Have a great time and teach it. And I'm glad it's working for everyone." Mike, his experience and background, he is a comm guy or was a comm guy by trade. He might still be in the cyber career field. And he was filling in as a group exec and would often go, back and forth and look at the wing exec. And something he did was kind of a data science or a data analysis behind why did this package win over this one? Why did this award win over this one? Why did this one get stratified? Why did this one get pushed for a promotion statement? Why did this one go through the EFTP process? He really broke it down analytically. So a lot of when we get into the readability levels and the scope and the data, there be turns more into a data analytics course. We're not going to dive too far deep into the data science. Probably more expanded time frame than what can be allotted to us through this course. I mean, I'm on slide 2, and I think I've been talking for quite some time now. But without further ado, let's get into some content and see what we have going on. So I love sharing resources and tools. Again, my educational background in me with professional development and making sure our airmen across the force have exactly what they need to help them succeed. I have built an app, right? So if you take your phone right now and scan that QR code, you are going to get set up with an app to my professional development. That was kind of the program that I kind of kicked off back when I was with Sam Fox University and all this teaching, all the things. So I highlight that because eventually you're going to find inside there, if you scan the QR code and go through the app, you're going to find a performance statement writing course. And then it's going to ask you for advanced or beginner. This course is a hybrid of both of those. I'm giving you both in one-stop shop. So if you're an A1C senior airman, brand new staff sergeant going through this course, you should be fine. You'll be good to go. If you're a tech, master sergeant, senior master sergeant, chiefs, junior officers, no worries. I promise you, I will connect you with something in this material that you have not seen, touched, or done before that you are going to take something from. Now, if you are going through this course as a tech sergeant or a master sergeant and you're like, "Hey, my troop would really benefit from this, and you want to hand them something tangible. And this course, watching this course, I promise you, is going to be something tangible you can hand them. But there's also a digital workbook inside of there. So if you were to click on performance statement writing course and you go to your workbook area, you're going to find an advanced and a beginner. So again, advanced, think NCO into senior NCO and our junior officers, and then beginner, go ahead and push that towards your ALS folks to get them something to get going with. So we're going to highlight what a performance statement is, break some myths. Um, I like to say that my first three sections, right, overview, statement writing, and writing pitfalls, is kind of the negative side of this presentation. But I say negative, I mean, it's probably gonna jive differently than some of you may think about some things, but I'm gonna point out references and highlight things and show you some true black and white and what the writing guide says. And if you're not familiar with that, there is an ALQ writing guide that is out there that tells us exactly how to write a performance statement. Yet some units, wings, organizations still don't follow that. They have their own version, and they can because quarterly awards are ran by your wing command chief. So they're kind of the one deciding what a performance statement actually is according to that wing and how they want it shaped. So that's okay. You just have to learn the rules to the game and what you're trying to write for. We'll talk all about that more as we go. I'm going to reference awards and evaluations. Now, thankfully, when we shifted into performance statements, we started to combine. By combine, I mean OPBs and EPBs look the exact same, same format, same tools, same resources, which is great. Because no matter who you're talking to, then, no matter when you're talking to them, we're all going to structure our stuff the same way, which is great. The next part we're going to dive into, and as I told you, this is where we switch. At this point right here is where we switch into the data science part of it. So when we talk about numbers that matter and readability, again, we're going to really play to the cognition of how some people view and think and see certain things. And that's going to be very important to note. Because at this point in the game, if you're not thinking about who you're writing for, you're missing the mark. This is not Scott's evaluation. This is not your personal evaluation. I got it. It is about an evaluation about you. The AFI says your supervisor will write your evaluation. Got it. Got it. We care most about our career. We should know what goes into our evaluation, do a thing. Got it. Who do we write these things for? Who is on the receiving end of this? That's who we should be thinking about. Check your ego at the door. Who is going to be reading this? Well, if you're a senior NCO or trying to become a senior NCO, those tech sergeants that are going up for promotion boards, you have two chiefs and a colonel that are going to be viewing your things. If you are staff and senior airman, you're going to be fighting for force distros. That means your unit is going to be viewing these things. That's a little more tangible, a little more tactical level that you can go off of. Now, if you're thinking awards quarterly, whether it's going up through the wing, squadron, group, and further, maybe potentially depending on what type of an award it is, right? Again, annuals go up higher outside of the wing. Those awards are written for an audience. Now, if we're talking a wing awards board, well, somebody from each of those groups make up a wing awards board. So if you're very focused on your maintenance jargon background, well, ops might know it. That's kind of their realm a little bit. Somebody from medical, you're going to be speaking a completely different language to them. You're not going to be hitting that readability level that everyone should be understanding of what's going on. So this is where I'm going to start right off the bat with the negative, not negative, but fact checking a little bit. Check your ego at the door because this evaluation or the award, whoever you are writing for, has an audience. That's who you need to be considering. Okay, so when performance statements came out, we know that it is a narrative style of writing meant to increase efficiency and clarity and improve readability. Deliberately not overly prescriptive. That's why if you bounce around between match comms or wings, you might find a slight variance in their writing styles, and that's okay. But there's two basic principles, no matter where we go, no matter how we operate, no matter what we do, they're the same. It's the foundation of what performance statement writing is all about. And if you deviate from these principles, you're no longer doing performance statements. You're doing your own thing, which again can be okay, but If you're talking about an evaluation, that's not the rules of the game. So our first basic principle that we need to be concerned about, sorry, is standalone. A standalone sentence. Standalone sentence means one singular sentence. And I'm going to show you an example here in a little bit, but it has to be comprised of two things, an action with at least one, an impact or a result. You do not have to have action, impact, result. However, if you're an old head like me, that's what you go for. And that's okay. Just understand you don't have to do that. You have to have an action and you have to have an impact or result. When we get into some writing mechanics here in a couple more slides, we're going to really break that down and what that looks like. The second basic principle is readability. When in doubt, spell it out. Now, acronyms, abbreviations, there is a given list that we can go on to AFPC and find our set acronym list and make sure we use the appropriate acronyms. If you don't, MPF will kick it back to you if it's an evaluation. If it's an award, one of the exec teams will kick it back saying you do not have the correct acronyms and abbreviations. You need to fix this thing. So, to ease your process of getting through each of those different gates, go ahead and spell it out. I promise you, the characters you're trying to save, I got it. Right? We're robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit. And what I mean by that is if you're looking at an EPR, you went from about 13 to 14 different uh, bullets. Now for our EPBs, now to our performance statements, you're talking maybe nine. And I say nine because you're looking at two performance statements per each MPA and one in your HLR. Now, one in your HLR, I'm gonna tell you right now, every board feedback I've seen, heard of, talked to, anybody has always said you have to have something actionable inside your HLR. It is not just a fluffy statement to talk about how great your leadership and your technical acumen is and how much you're ready for more and increased responsibilities and all the things. You have to have something tangible in there. Otherwise, the board's going to look at it and say, yep, that's fluff. Next. And you could get overlooked. So it's very important to know that you have something actionable in your HLR. So again, nine statements, two per MPA and one in your HLR. Okay. Now, standalone. So this is where we're going to start with our one of our first examples. When we talk about a standalone singular sentence, this is it. There's no other additional periods. The only period in this performance statement is right here at the end. That's it. Now, you could argue there might be some commas missing or whatnot. I would probably argue there's some commas missing. I got it. Um, but this is a pretty good performance statement. It is a volunteer performance statement, so it does reach a lot of audience. So that's important to know. But if we were to break down our readability, our flow, our standalone performance statement, you have three basic compartments that you want to have in here. Now you have an action. What did you do and how did you do the thing? A transition word, some type of word to get you from your action to your impact or result. Otherwise, it's clunky. You got to put a period in. You got to put a semicolon in. You got to do something that's going to ruin the readability or flow of that sentence. So for our action, we have chosen out of 36 applicants for the school district to propose to COAs open a new school impacting, oh, sorry, stop at new school. Our transition word is impacting. Now, you don't have to be as subtle as I am with impacting or resulting or anything of that sort. You don't have to be that, um, again, that obvious, but any ing is going to get you there. Ensuring, enabling, securing, sealing, solidifying, fortifying, on and on and on and on. Get you an ing word that fits what you're trying to do, and that establishes your transition from your action to your impact or result. And then, without further ado, we have our impact to 778 students and reducing overages by 26% at two schools. Now, if you want to be technical about this one, there is an impact and a result here. Your impact, I want to mark it in red, but this is your impact. your 778 students. Now, looking at it in green, that is your result or outcome. So because you impacted those students and proposed those two COAs to remap for a new school, you're going to reduce the outcome. Result is reducing overages by 26% at two schools. Do you have to have that? No. You have to have one, either here or here, but you do not have to have both. It is one or the other. Okay. Again, old head like me writing, I want to see both. I'll explain the why to both as we get into data, because I think that's where it really connects the dots on those things. So, again, when we get to data, I'll explain why I write the way I do and how I write that. Okay, when we are writing, we are telling a story. Now, I touched on this before when I said, hey, you need to think about who you're writing for. You are writing towards an audience. You want to make sure you have context and tell a scene. What did you do with that action? What was the tools and instrument to get you there to achieve that result? So, this whole paragraph, what this is telling you is what did you do and how did you do it? That's your context. That provides the meaning to the reader of this thing is so amazing. Now, there's additional things you can do with context. Um, Digging deeper into some of the results-based statistical data that's out there that's on MyFSS. If you search the knowledge article area on MyFSS, you're actually going to find a lot of good information and data. One of the items, if you look at the statistical demographics, right, our enlisted force makes up about 2% of those who have master's degrees. So if you're an enlisted member and you have a master's degree, congratulations, you're in the top 2% of enlisted education in our Air Force. That gives you context. That provides meaning and data behind how you're doing and what you're doing. That's important to know. Now, the second part of this is you have to be compelling. Let's put yourself in that audience's shoes. Now, audience, if you're on a promotion board, you're looking at hundreds of records times nine performance statements, 900 statements you are looking at grading, evaluating, judging. Well, that's only on one, by the way. Add in all of the rest of them, you are looking at thousands of performance statements. Your writing has to resonate with your audience. There's no way around it. If you are putting in something boring, I promise you, they're going to see it as such. They're going to look at it and go, so what? Why is this important? Don't care. You're not going to get the value for it. Same thing with awards boards. Now, awards boards is going to hit you a little harder because you're not going to get scored very well on it. And if you're not getting scored very well on it, you're not going to win that award, or your troop is not going to win that award. That could hurt, especially when we talk about how valuable awards are. Now, going back into the writing mechanics. Now, I talked a little bit about these two areas. What did you do and how did you do it? So if you led a team, that is great, but how did you lead that team? I led a team to go do X, Y, and Z. Great. That is the how you did it part of it. What was the impact or result of it? Well, we increased our mission capability rate by 10% and we put our qualifications are up 30%. Great. That gives me the so what and the why it's important. I put this for the impact or result. However, it goes for anything. If you were going to put something in your evaluation, whether it's a data or any type of additional information, it has to answer this age-old question that will never go away. So what and why is it important? Well, if you're talking about leadership, that's easy. I led people to go do a thing. That answers itself. But if you're telling me, if you're thinking like a senior airman who's a maintainer, I got it, not everyone's maintenance in here, but tie this to your applicable career field. I promise you can. If you're talking about a senior airman who is doing the job, the job, and getting after some things, you're going to say, conducted so many maintenance actions. Okay, well, so what? Why that's important? How about you led your squadron to complete the most maintenance actions? out of 36 maintainers or out of 150 maintainers, you did the most maintenance actions. That gives me context to say so what and why it's important. That tells the reader, oh, I have a great airman here who's going to do some amazing things. You start to hit them a little differently. Again, we'll get into data more, but I keep leaning towards it because it all circles back to what you use and how you use it. I promise. Now, transition words. When we first kicked off performance statements, that was kind of a mandatory type thing. You need to put a transition word between performance statements for increased readability and flow. You don't. That was their flavor, and that's okay. That is not a hill worth dying on. That is not a hill worth going to argue and trying to take. If they ask you for transition words, also ALSO and a comma, 5 characters, you'll be okay, I promise. Don't use the additionally, thereafter, right? All those long transition words. Stay away from the long character count because you only have 350 characters to work with. So if you're using those long transition words between performance statements, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. This count starts to go down really quickly when you've wasted 20 characters on a transition word. It matters. I promise you it matters. If you don't think so, try writing a performance statement inside of 350. It can be challenging sometimes. Oh, and not just one, two. It can be very challenging. The other transition word you are need to have. This is a mandatory must. You will have a transition word inside of your performance statement. Again, that ing that is going to get you across the finish line to go from your action to your impact or result. That has to be there, that ing word again. Then my only part of the tongue and quill that I will still reference is right here. Now, the maintainer in me is this is my one of my dad jokes here. The maintainer in me wants ABS to be analog braking system. Nope, sorry, that's not what it is. It's accuracy, brevity, specificity. Accuracy, pretty self-explanatory, right? You want to be as accurate as you possibly can with your numbers. That means if I see 100 plus, well, what does that mean? Does that mean 101? Does that mean 199? I don't know. So this plus sign, we used to do that to try and show more scope. Just give me a rough estimate of numbers. It's okay. And I promise you, if you're trying to compare, well, 101 or 199, what's more important? They're both great. They're both great. Don't waste your brain cells on that. Don't focus in on there. Just give me the accurate number and move on. Okay? That's where specificity also comes into play too. Be as specific as you possibly can. What did you do and how did you do it? Now, brevity, we are going to talk about that one when we get into writing pitfalls because there are 2 writing pitfalls that capture brevity perfectly. But I'll tell you, we've botched brevity since 1947. Think about it. If you're old like me, you're going to see data slash data slash. Think about your EPRs, your bullets. Go back to those and look what was in the middle, right here. We would try to combine so much information and not be brief, concise, and to the point. We were missing that mark for quite some time, and I'm going to show you why and how you can get away from that, and what that really means and what that really does for your writing. Now, I'm sorry, not when in doubt, spell it out. That's another good quote. However, you want to stand out with your performance statements. That means using numbers. This is where I will counteract the tongue and quill. The tongue and quill, if you flip to chapter 18, I can tell you exactly where it's at. It tells you for numbers 0 through 9, you should spell out. Got it. Again, I'm going to go back to that by saying, well, the tongue and quill is a T, I'm sorry, an AFH handbook. That means it's there if you have nothing else to use. There is right now no specific writing that tells us how to write performance statements. So that's why a lot of leaders will revert back to it. I will push back and say, spell out that number and don't waste that character space, especially if you have to go in and write a transition word too. Good night. You've just ate up out of 350 characters. You ate up maybe 40 of them, maybe 30, 50, depends on what word you use and depends on what word you're spelling out. Ugh, just use the number. Okay. Percent sign, ampersand sign, dollar sign, they all matter. They all help get your point across, but at the same time, this is not J.C. Penney's. There's no BOGO deals here. There's no buy one, get one. It means if you're going to use percent sign in one of your statements, whether it's an award or an evaluation, use percent sign all the way through. Don't try and spell percent out later, trying to sneak it in to get to your 350 character count. Or same thing with dollar. No. If you're going to do it all the way through. No mixing and matching here. It just shows the level of detail and consistency. Because some people are arguing, well, what does that really do for you, Scott? Well, when you're splitting hairs and details matter, especially in awards, I've seen some awards get pushed against because they didn't format the top the correct way when it shows you exactly what to do. So, like, how is their attention to detail? People split hairs in the weirdest ways. Don't give them the chance to deviate your package, whether it's an award package or an evaluation package, because you were inconsistent. Now, after you've written your performance statement, there are some things you need to go do. Read, reread, and reread again. And you should be asking yourself a couple questions here. Does this add value? Or does it take up space? We can argue that there is at least 5 to 6 different things that make up a great performance statement. You're going to tell me that you generated this thing, you changed this thing, you produced this process, you re-deviated from this, you amended this CFETP, you did all of these things to produce this great impact or result. I got it. However, you can't fit that. Not on 350 when you got to put 2 performance statements in. So you have to ask yourself the tough question. Does this add value or does it take up space? And where can I quantify? Quantification, quantification, quantification. If you are an SEL or a flight chief or an NCOIC and you lead 10, 20, 15 people, 20 people, whatever it is, and you put it up in your key duties, your statements might be a different number, meaning I led a 5-person team to go do a thing. Well, it says you're an SEL and you lead 350. That's cool. However, this specific thing did this for these people. I want to be accurate and specific as possible. So quantifying shows my leadership at different avenues in different realms. I am showing you that I'm a diverse leader by showing you that I can go through quantifying and leading at different levels, whether it's the large 350 or it's a smaller team of 10 to 15 to 20. Quantify, quantify, quantify. But don't over quantify. I've seen this one quite a bit. You want to double tap or double stamp a triple stamp or triple stamp a double stamp or double tap on something because you're doing Zombieland rules here. No. If you're going to tell me that you carried you changed this part or you did this thing that's worth $38,000, but the whole program is valued at $1 million. Great. Pick one because then one of them is taking up space and the other one is not. Pick one and go. Again, that takes 5 or 6 things. Highlight the one thing that you thought is the most important thing that showed your leadership and achieved your impact or result. Pick that one, maybe at max 2 things, max. And also, if you're going to use them fancy buzzwords like MCA or MRA, Mission Ready Airman, Mission Capable Airman, or ACE, Agile Combat Employment, those are great, but your statement better back it up. Your statement better talk about how you truly were or led or did things that is multi-capable across various different AFSCs. And if you're talking about ACE, how did you lead a small team to go do a thing? Because that's what that's about. Okay. Follow through. Deliver, deliver, deliver. Don't leave the reader wanting more. Now our writing pitfalls. So if you remember a couple slides ago, a couple minutes ago, we were talking about brevity, that B. How am I being concise and to the point? And I said, there's two writing pitfalls that talk about this. Well, here is the first one right here. Overload. You're putting too much information into the performance statement to the point to where nobody understands the so what and why it's important. So Ricky aced expediter role, managing 8 AFSCs, 1,300 maintenance actions, 140 sorties, 86 mission to solidify the president's travel to 29 states and 18 nations. Okay, so what? I don't know. I really don't know the so what behind this performance statement. Expediter role, okay, well, what rank is Ricky? Because that job is typically of a tech sergeant or a staff sergeant. Are they a senior airman? Are they performing outside of their duties? Are they a master sergeant? And this writer is he actually trying to mark the reader down or mark the person down? Because that's how you do it nowadays. Right? There's no more markings on our evaluations. So how do you mark somebody down? You change the performance level. What are they supposed to be operating at? That is its own entity when you start talking about proficiency levels. If you look at the ALQ writing guide and you flip to the very bottom of it and you look at proficiency levels, it'll talk about a master sergeant during COVID reported things a certain way. One of it was they actually did their job and they took action and led and mentored and guided a team. That's the highest proficiency level. And then the very lowest for that master sergeant is waiting for somebody to tell them what to go do. So I digress off of that, getting back to this writing pitfall. Okay, managing 8 AFSCs. That seems like a lot. Probably a specialist or a maintenance squadron and one of the back shop expediters that would match for them. But 8 AFSCs doesn't tell me how many people though. Okay, well, the negative Nancy in me, when I see 8, I think, and I don't see any other context, I think of 8 people. That's it. That's what you're gonna get. That's the credit level you're gonna get. You led one person per AFSC. That's good. Watch how it changes though. 1,300 maintenance actions. Is that a lot or is that a little? It's comparative. If you look at a normal a fighter unit, a fighter aircraft maintenance unit, they they turn 140 sorties and 86 missions. That's like a week worth of work, a week's worth of work for them. Same thing with these maintenance actions. That's a week's worth of work. Cool. Congrats. Why are we capturing something that's only for a week? There's no context to tell you the so what and why it's important. So what if we fixed all of this? What would that look like? Well, now I get to find out some things. Ricky filled above his rank as an expediter. Oh, above his rank as an expediter. That tells me something. That tells me the unit trusts Ricky to be a good leader. They are operating above their capacity. They're ready for more responsibility and increased roles. They've given them an increased role. Now we need to match at the rank with the individual. That's an Air Force problem, and that's a good problem to have for the Air Force, right? So then we find out that he was, as an expediter, he's guiding 36 people. He's leading 36 people. That's way more than 8. That matters. Through 1.3K maintenance actions, so we abbreviated the number, which is allowed and it's acceptable and highly encouraged. Now, maintenance could have been abbreviated. I got it. It generated 86 missions. So we got rid of the sorties. We got rid of the AFSCs and talked about people. And we eliminated the president's travel because we wanted to focus in on something. And that focus in on something was marking the busiest quarter in 4 years. That gives you context. That tells you this individual operating above his rank, above his role and responsibilities, led people through a considerable number of maintenance actions and emissions to mark the busiest quarter in 4 years. So he led his team through adverse actions, made good critical thinking decisions to lead his team to a certain point. Huge. That's overload. We took out a lot of the extra fluff and we said what was important, what took up space. How can we provide context to the reader? Again, we are checking our ego at the door. We're going to think about the reader. How are they viewing that statement? Okay. Now, our next example, library, titles and names. When you think of library, I want you to think of those titles and names. The problem when you put titles and names into things is we think that everyone knows what that thing is. I spent 12 years in Air Mobility Command. And then for Air Mobility Command, the largest exercise we have is Mobility Guardian. It's in the Pacific. It happens every year. Okay. If I say Mobility Guardian, everyone inside AMC knows that. However, when you're on a wing or an installation or you're going for a promotion board, it's a diverse group that's up there. They don't know all of those things. So if you're going to use a title or a name, you have to make sure that everyone understands the context of so what and why it's important. So if we look at our example, Sergeant Doe was selected as an Air Force One flying crew chief. He crewed 16 presidential missions and supported 15 White House Military Office Joint Service exercises, totaling 48 sorties with 113 flight hours. Now, the title or name that was thrown into this one is White House Military Office. Okay, does everyone understand what that is? Well, that's a small organization that's attached to the White House with the presidential team. That small organization is made up of only a few hundred people. Well, when you think of the hundreds of thousands that are in the Air Force and the group of people that are sitting on the promotion board, do they know what that means? I can tell you before I joined that team, I didn't know what it meant. And I've been across the Air Force and I've asked this question, what does White House Military Office do? Who are they? And people don't know. So if you're going to throw a title or a name into something, exercise uh, Mobility Guardian or Operation Enduring Success or Operation Razor's Edge, I'm making up names. I got it. However, they could be real operations or exercises. That's not the relevant part. The relevant part when we look at this performance statement is the performance of what Sergeant Doe did. So they were selected as an Air Force One flying crew chief. They crewed 16 missions and supported 15 joint service exercises, totaling 48 sorties and 113 hours. Because I got rid of a few things, mainly the White House Military Office piece of it, I'm able to add in context. Context, context, context. You enable the training during these exercises for 225 people. That's huge. That's a good outcome. That's a good result. You impacted those people. That's amazing. However, that was not captured because we wanted to put those fancy titles and names in there, and we chewed up a bunch of character count. Can't do that. Now, the absolutes, moving on to number three, the perfect storm, that 100 or zero. Now, if you read Mike's Black Belt Bullet Writing book or the adjusted version performance statements that is in that app that I showed you at the very beginning, there's a 63-page writing guide on performance statements that covers this whole lesson well more in detail than what I can do for you in an hour to 2 hour course. 100% and zero. So in there it says if you choose 100% or zero, you're choosing the perfect storm, meaning you did it perfectly. Okay, well, when we do our job perfectly, that's kind of what's expected of us. So how did you do it perfectly? What was so great about it? How the maintained 100% uptime for zero mission degradation? How, so what? You're doing your job. You're supposed to maintain that network to have that thing. That's the expectation. These efforts secured a highly effective rating for the flight during a cyber readiness inspection. Okay, but what if we had more details? What if we did some homework? What if we found out that Sam maintained the largest network operations inside of the 16th Air Force with zero mission degradation? I just gave you context. I told you this airman maintains the largest network inside of a numbered Air Force and had zero mission degradations. That's huge. That's big time. These efforts solidified a highly effective rating. Okay, well, we knew that, but they outpaced six other groups during their cyber readiness inspection. Well, question, Scott, how do I go find how well I did in my UEI, in my cyber readiness inspection, in any type of inspection? Well, every wing on a wing staff has an inspector general office. They maintain the scoring rates of the stats. They can give you context of how you did compared to others to give you that so what and why is it important? Well, your highly effective rating, you beat out six other groups during your readiness inspection. That's a so what and why it's important if I've ever seen one. Our final two, the cheerleader. No, this is not my 10-year-old cheerleader who is going crazy and doing all these things on her mat, killing it like she does. This is the getting fancy with it. This is the unstoppable engineer in a highly visible construction project. Phenomenal NCO. Okay, well, let's do this because this is what you get from it. We laugh and we joke, and you might be thinking, okay, you're not telling me anything new, Scott, here. However, that's still in our writing. Why? Because we use ChatGPT. We use all of those AI writing tools that people want to do. Those AI writing tools are learning language models. They're meant to write with a style of fluff and flair. If you don't teach it, because it is a learning language model, to remove those things, you're still going to produce a performance statement that does that. Okay, well then, so what? Why is it important? Why is it important that you did this 4-unit telemetry towers that augmented communications with base pilots? Well, let's uncover that one. Phenomenal NCO. I'll talk about that one in a second. Scott designed 4-unit telemetry towers that provided augmented communications during a network outage. So what? And why is it important? Why is it important that you designed those 4-unit telemetry towers? Well, it gave augmented communications during a network outage. That's a so what and why it's important. Also, to provide more context, safe transmissions for 15 crews to land with zero mishaps. Huge. And you got rid of the fluff and you put what's important. And now look at that performance statement. Okay, let's go back. Phenomenal NCO. The one spot in your evaluation, now not awards, evaluation, that I will push for this type of context is in your HLR. From my experience through promotions, now this is for the 2A5 career field, right? I can only speak for certain areas. I got it. I am not a chief. I don't sit on those promotion boards, but my folks get promoted from those promotion boards. The makeup of a good HLR is character plus leadership with action plus awards equals promotion statement. Now you're gonna tell me, Scott, text art and below, you cannot put promotion statements. AFI says so. Totally get it. You can tell the reader that they're ready for increased responsibility. They're clearly ready. They're absolutely ready, undoubtedly ready for more responsibility. That matters. That matters. Okay. Last writing pitfall in number two when we talk about brevity. So we had overload and now we have our history professor. Was when you start to finish, you tell me everything under the sun that you did to go do a thing. Very common for induction ceremonies, very common for balls, promotion ceremonies, retirement ceremonies, volunteer activities, private orgs, a lot of the additional things. This is what you see. Ricky volunteered to co-chair for two subcommittees for the senior NCO induction ceremony, honoring 51 NCOs, senior NCOs, sorry. After 5 months of planning, he synchronized 27 committee members, coordinated with seven base agencies for the planning of 8 tasks and 3.5K volunteer hours. His actions produced a successful event for the 249 guests from two wings. You told me everything. Oh boy. You also told me things I didn't know. And that's where we should focus on. That's the level of effort we should be focused in on. Now, I'm going to hit the next button and it's going to transition the slide and it's going to do a thing, but I want to start off the bat. I did not change this block size. I got rid of the fluff. That's all I did. Okay? That same statement tells me the same thing. What don't I know? As a reader, what don't I know? Well, Ricky co-chaired two subcommittees. Didn't know that. And the fact that one individual is running two subcommittees, that's context. That's a so what, why does it matter? That is huge. People barely run one. This one's doing two for the senior NCO induction ceremony. If the minute anybody that is in a leadership position, that is a chief or higher, or honestly, even an E7 or higher, when they see this senior NCO induction ceremony or the Air Force ball or you being on a private org or any of those things, they know there's a considerable amount of effort and time that goes into planning and carrying out those things. So tell them what they don't know. Well, what they don't know is that you synchronized 27 committee members, you honored 51 selects, and you had a successful event for 249 people from two wings. That's a big event. That's a big deal. That's a good performance statement now. It literally tells me the same exact thing as the other one did, but took out all the extra stuff that doesn't matter. Okay, I'm gonna say that's all the negative stuff. Now, this is where I usually get the question, well, now that you tore apart my writing, how do we fix it? How do we make it better? I got you gave me examples and the writing pitfalls, but how do I make this better now? How do I write the ship? Well, let's start with your data. Let's go there. Then we'll tackle readability. When you're talking about data, you have to look at a data frenzy, whether you shotgun data and you're trying to get it all on all the data, all the raw, unprocessed data into the performance statement. It's risky. It can be great for large scopes, but it's risky. It serves as an impact to provide context. It starts to provide context, starts to. When we get into data levels in the next slide, I'm going to show you how you really show context. Then the next question is location. Where should I put my data? Well, it depends on what you're trying to show. Well, if you're trying to show leadership, your data should be up front. If you're trying to show a big impact or a result, it should be at the very end. Should also have somewhere kind of probably in the middle too. Um, Typically, you would see data at this point either at the front or at the back end for bullets, but in a performance statement, quantification throughout the entire process does matter and does play a role. However, whatever data you use, location and the type of data you use, and not trying to be a frenzy with it, this is the age-old question that doesn't go away. So what? Why is it important? You have to be deliberate about the data you are using because you have a limited character space now. 350 characters. I can't stress that enough. Two performance statements that are a standalone singular sentence. So what? And why is it important that you're telling me that it was a zero mission degradation? Well, it's the largest network in 16th Air Force. Oh, okay. That matters. Prioritize. You have limited space. Avoid the stat lines. And when I say stat lines, it could be argued that it's okay to put it in your executing the mission. List all of your stats. So for a maintainer, and this is, I know again, I'm speaking to a limited career field here, but your maintenance actions, your sorties, your missions, your flight hours, those large amounts of activities that you do on a routine basis, they could go up and execute a mission, or you could sprinkle them throughout your evaluation in various different areas and really drive home the so and why it's important through data analysis. Prioritize. You have limited space. Okay, so now we roll into, well, what numbers and types of numbers do we use? Again, this data science approach. Well, there's three tiers. Our first tier has really little to no analysis, but it is great for massive scopes only. Specifically, right there, raw data. That is level one characteristic. You are telling me that you did this thing and it produced a 1 hour reporting time. Or if you're a comm guy, your base SIPRnet is 275K, or you let a four-member team. Now, the one area that I will argue until I'm blue in the face, and I don't care who it's with, I will argue if you can show leadership, that level one raw data is okay. I promise you. It is good. Leadership is always good to show. Now, level two is comparative, that previous versus current. So what was it previously and what it is now? You start to provide that level of context. You start to provide the context. So you had that 1 hour reporting time over here, and this is an example that we're going to use throughout these various levels. So it really, hopefully, will drive home and make sense a little bit more. But your 1 hour reporting time, well, originally that reporting time was 3 hours, and we dropped it down to one. That matters more. That means something more to the reader that you did this thing, and now reporting time dropped from 3 hours down to one. Or your vulnerabilities are down 5K because you put this widget into place, or you're the only Arabic or Mandarin linguist in your squadron, or Russian linguist in your squadron. That matters, especially with what's going on in today's world. That matters. Your moderate level of analysis. So this is where you have start to done some homework. Now, a lot of us have key performance indicators. We have some type of analysis tool that tells us what our customer service rate is, how well our organization's team is doing from quarter to quarter or from month to month. There's some type of performance indicator out there. So oftentimes, the data that you could use starts right here at a computed. That is a new calculated metric. And what I mean by that is we took our 3 to 1 here and we brought it down. So 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 divided by 3. We went to 66% or 67%, depends how you round it, right? To show that our reporting time dropped by 66%. That's good. You've started to do something that gives the readers something context different. Our missions are up 20% because we did this thing. It's the highest in 3 years because we did this thing. Well, the next level that really drives it home is the combined. That's where you start to compare and contrast previous versus current over a given time period. That time period is what really drives the context home for the reader. Reporting time dropped to 66%. Okay, all we did was move that over. But now we're comparing and contrasting because now we're saying that we did it inside of 2 months. Or we are looking at our test averages are up from 60 to 85 in 3 months. That's a whole lot of context right there for the reader. That tells you the so what and why it's important. That gives them more details and information to work off of. Okay, moderate analysis. Now I'm going to show you 5 and 6 because that is part of the lesson plan that was originally constructed, and I'm not going to deviate too far from that because that's what I promised Mike way back when when I asked him to teach the content. But if you said, Scott, where do you write? Here and here. I will ask my team questions till I'm blue in the face to get this, and then I'm leaning to try to get to there. I've seen the most success from this level of data analysis when you are trying to consume that, when you're trying to produce that level of data for the reader to go consume, that has yielded the best success in my opinion because it answers the question of so what and why it's important. It shows scope, it shows meaning and significance behind the work that you are doing and or did. Now, 5 and 6, vast analysis. Yes, it is vast analysis. However, when we all went through Lackland, well, if you're enlisted, you went through Lackland. If you're an officer, you went through your applicable commissioning program. Well, we go through medical and we get injected with all them shots. Well, one of them was you have to write in past tense. So calling the future and a predicted trend is very dangerous because we want to write in past tense. That was a bad dad joke. I got it. And the tongue and quill, it tells us to write past tense. So we want to show things in past tense because you're recapping of stuff that you did over a given time period. And the question always comes up, what if? Okay. So projected reporting time or projected to drop reporting time from 75% in 2 months, fastest in unit history. Now, typically where this gets messed up is not this part. Projected to drop reporting time 75% in 2 months. That's usually, though, where the writer stops right here. And they forget to add in the context of so what and why it's important. It's the fastest in unit history. The other side of the problem is if even if you do that, you're going to have people that are going to scrutinize your work and look at it and go, well, what happens when this doesn't happen? What happens when you don't get there? Because you told me this key word right here, projected to, expected to. What happens when it doesn't? You didn't give me any validated, guaranteed metric. And that's the difference between 5 and 6. 6 is a guaranteed metric or result. You purchased this thing or you did this thing. You wrote this operating instruction or this policy or this procedure, and it gives you a permanent, guaranteed 95% reporting speed. The fastest in unit history, right? All of the things. That's the difference between the two. Now, story time real quick. I had a troop who ran a golf tournament for the wing. And that golf tournament, all the planning happened in the second quarter. The event was in the third quarter. I wanted to write him a volunteer of the quarter package because he did a ton of work and it was amazing and he did a great job. So it deserved an award. So we ginned up this volunteer of the quarter package. We did all of this thing. And then at that time, they had produced more funds and they had an expected attendance that was higher than previous year. So we wrote it that way. Expected to produce 36% higher attendance rate and 8,000 more dollars. It looked great. It read great. It did all the things that made it through the squadron, the group. It went to the wing. I was lucky enough to be on that wing awards board and I'm sitting there and I knew the question was going to come up. And they knew I wrote it because I was representing the wing staff when I was on that awards board. So I was that entity, that group. So they knew that members from wing staff. They looked at me and go, Scott, what happens when this doesn't have the attendance? When it doesn't produce the amount of funds that it said it's going to do? What happens? They're like, the golf tournament's not until the third quarter. It hasn't even happened yet. I hear you. I got it. It was a risk I was willing to take. He scored 0 points on that promotion, on that performance statement. Bit the bullet on that one, but he still got a group level award. Still awesome. Still recognized his achievement and hard work. But that's what can happen when you call in the future. That's what can happen when you start to do that predictive trends and how somebody views it. Again, I didn't take into the context of how the audience was going to view that performance statement, that award package. I did not check my ego at the door. I wanted to push a certain thing and do a certain thing and do well at it. And we did, and it did great. However, I didn't consider the final reader. And when I didn't consider the final reader, That's what happened to it. Okay. Okay, that's data. So before we jump into readability, that is the data science behind things. That is how you should be concerned and consider what type of data you are using and why you're using it. What does it show? What does the reader gain from it? How are they going to gain from it? How is it going to make them feel? Again, the cognitive data science behind things. Well, let's go more into data science. We're going to go into readability levels. This is that second principle when we talk about the two basic principles for performance statement writing. When we look at this and break this down, level one and level two together, there's no examples. I'm just going to talk about them and explain them to you, but there's no examples. Three all the way through six, we'll take one example and we will step it through each of the process, how we change it through the readability process. So that way people can translate it and understand it regardless of what AFSC and where they're at. So level one is the author level. I would also ask you to consider it as a first draft. The writer is trying to convey something, and there's typically something missing that connects the action with the impact or result, the action with the context of how the reader did this thing. What usually happens in this phase is writer bias, meaning you're at the keyboard, you're doing all of these things to type up this amazing performance statement, and you don't take the time to go back and reread. You don't go back to the writing mechanics and say, does this add value? Do I have the right thing in the right place? Am I saying this correctly? Oftentimes I'll go back and I'll catch myself. If I'm the one writing the thing and not editing or revising, if I'm the one writing it, I usually send it to my commander or director to review. When they look at it, they usually come back with, what do we mean here? What's going on here? I don't truly understand this. Think about if you're an airman and you're handing this to your supervisor, think about it that way. When they hand it back to you, going, I don't understand what it is you're trying to say, and I work with you on a routine basis. Oftentimes, I'll find myself when I'm typing something, I'll say it in my head and I'll type it out, and I won't go back to review and revise. So I won't go back and catch the mistakes that I should have caught and correct them and fix them. So that's why I always say first draft. Things are not linked together properly. Well, two, this is where the flight understands what's going on. So your OIC might understand it, your AMU superintendent, your flight chief, initial, immediate tactical supervision understands what's going on. But the minute that you brought it to the squadron, um, they don't understand what's going on. So another story for context here. I was writing the evaluations for my team and I tried something fancy. I tried one of the different things to show data a different way and do all the things. Well, I understood what was going on. I was able to explain it to my flight chief, AMU superintendent, and got him on board. And he was like, "Okay, let's try it. I don't know if it's going to work, but let's try it." We get to what we call our murder board for that squadron, where that's where the flight and the squadron leadership get together and they review the evaluations. So we get commander's intent very fast, and we can produce these results very fast. That's a whole separate class, almost on theory of constraints and commander's intent and all the things. And we'll save that one for another recording, another session. But for this, we got to the evaluation. It was like the third statement down, and I'm waiting for the commander because commander was reading them out loud. Yep, like that. Yep, that makes sense. Got to the third one, reads it. I'm smiling. I'm like, oh, he's going to love this. This is going to be perfect. Going to change the game. He reads it, looks at me. Scott, what are we doing here? What does this even mean? Writer bias kicked in without fact checked, and we didn't have even our commander who's at the same tactical level, right? They're at the operational level of the tactical, right? They're in the same entity. They get briefed every day on what was performed and what happens and what goes on. Your commanders are in tune to your actions and processes, I promise. Um, and I tried to capture something that was not written at the correct level and it didn't link things together correctly. So I was able to make it through one level, one gate through the flight, but I could not make it through the squadron. So that's what that looks like. So those were our ones without an example. They're kind of relatively easy to understand. It makes sense. And you're able to fully, really at that point, you just need the definition to understand what's going on, and we can talk through it that way. Now we're going to take this performance statement, Ricky upgrading that was network performance, and we're going to step that through 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I have tangents for a few of them. I'm sorry, bear with me. But this first one, let's talk about this one. So, squadron. This is where your group doesn't understand what's going on. So, have sufficed the tactical level of your writing. And if you're trying to connect it to an operational or strategic objective, you are missing the mark. Okay, so Ricky upgraded network performance by installing new servers, increasing traffic volume by 15%, coordinated with cybersecurity and control system organizations to cut satellite upload 90%, allowed by the wing commander. Every time I've taught this class and I've used this example, which has again been all of those classes, all 70 of those classes, and all of those people, I'll ask, hey, is anybody calm? Is anybody a 1 delta in the room? I'll get a few people. They'll raise their hand. I'm like, does this make sense to you? And they go, yep, it makes perfect sense to me. I totally understand what's going on. And I look at the rest of the room, who is made up of probably different AFSCs, and I go, do you understand this? And they go, nope. You have a lot of technical jargon in here. I to get my writing tool, sorry. Cybersecurity, control system organizations, upload speed, increasing traffic volume by 15%. Like you're good through most people right here. Most people fully get this and are on board and give you a thumbs up. You lose them when you get into this stuff back here. And then you pick them back up right here. They understand this. They did this thing and they got a commander high-fived them. Okay, but what does the rest of it mean? There's confusion. It's like a lot of technical jargon written at this level. So what if we removed some of that technical jargon? And what if we took our thought process of thinking about the audience and who's reading this thing? And we focused on how do I get them to understand what is going on? How do I get them to understand the performance statement that I'm putting in front of them? Well, let's go to the next level with it. Level 4 is AFSC. This is where you should be writing your functional level awards to. I'm a maintainer. We have our Maintenance Pro of the Quarter awards. I'm going to throw all of the technical jargon in there that is applicable to all of our career fields, not just my one career field, not my 2A5, but all of them, so that we understand what is going on together, because that's who I'm trying to write to. That is who my audience is. Now, Ricky upgraded network performance by installing 13 new servers, improved traffic volume by 15%, and coordinated with 3 network operations squadrons, cutting satellite upload 90%, lauded by the wing commander. So I know that Ricky upgraded network performance by installing new servers. So now I quantified those new servers. I didn't have that before. Quantified those new servers, improved traffic volume by 15%. Okay. So instead of having to control system cyber organizations things, simply abbreviated it, coordinated with 3 network operations squadrons. Oh, okay. And we cut our satellite upload by 90%, allotted by the wing commander. Okay. Now I'll typically ask if we're in the same room setting, how many of you understand this performance statement now? And usually you get about 5 or 6 more hands going up. You start to gain more traction from your 1 deltas or your calm cyber folks understanding this performance statement. You start to gain more out of it. Okay. So now we're getting better with it. So how do we take it to the next level? The Air Force level, where everyone, regardless of their AFSC, gets it. Well, Ricky optimized network performance by installing 13 control devices. Okay. If they don't understand what a server is, I'm pretty sure they understand what a device is. So they installed 13 control devices that increased capabilities by 15%. So if they didn't understand what volume traffic was, they understand what an increased capability is by 15%, resulting in a customer satisfaction surge of 90%. If you are able to increase your upload, I promise you, your customer satisfaction is going to go up. Ask Verizon or T-Mobile or AT&T, and I'm sure they'll tell you the same exact thing. Go to your local MPF or finance office that tracks customer satisfaction when they got the little smiley faces. If you walk by the kiosk when you're checking in, they're there. They'll tell you that. So if you can increase your customer satisfaction, that's a big deal. That's important. A lot about the Wing Commander. So at this point, there is no technical jargon inside of this performance statement. Regardless of your rank, regardless of your career field, you can understand what is going on in here. Ricky did this thing, was able to increase capability, improved customer satisfaction or satellite upload, and lauded by the Wing Commander. There's nothing differential in here that would take it away. Now, at this point, I usually ask the audience, "Hey, have anybody not understand what is in this performance statement? Go ahead and raise your hand." So now I've changed the question from who understands it to who doesn't understand it. And almost every time, everyone does not raise their hand inside the class. They fully understand what is going on inside of this. Okay. So with this performance statement, I'll usually get asked the question at this point in time, "Hey, Scott, what happens when this gets kicked back?" Okay, fair question. What happens when I write this way and my supervisor kicks it back because it's too vague and doesn't make any sense? Okay, there is some things that you can tweak with this. I fully get that. I completely understand that. I'm not gonna, say this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I do understand that there can be deviations to this to make it more tactical and appropriate. But what we did was we eliminated some of the white noise and focused on the data and the content with the so what and why it's important, and we were able to drive it home for the reader. I go back to my beginning statement when I said I was able to help out that medical individual who she promoted from tech to master, and the commander gave the praise of that was the easiest evaluation I wrote. I went back and I asked her, I said, did anybody change it? And she said, no. Everyone kept saying throughout the process. This process works. I've seen units use this. Even when they had the lowest promotion rates, they still promoted well because they made things simple and easy for everyone to understand what was going on. This yields success. This screams readability. Our final level is mankind. There are civilian awards that we'll compete for. Geico, Biggs, Tuskegee, ATA Young Leader Award, USO, Vanguard. Insert any of those other additional civilian award organizations. You don't know who is on that board process. You may know squadron, group, wing. That's a military member. But once it leaves there and goes to that organization to be scored and evaluated, you don't know who is going to be interpreting that. Somebody could be of DoD or DoW service. They could be a military member. They also could not be. But let's hypothetically say that they are. Let's say that there's a military member for Geico that is on this award panel and that is deciding these things and evaluating these packages and going to hand out this award to do a thing. Let's say that they are a service member. Okay, well, are they Space Force, Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Marines? One of the six. It could be any of those. They could also maybe even be Department of Homeland Security. They could have done some border patrol or some of those things, and now they switched, and now they're into that. You don't know is what I'm getting at. You don't know who you're writing to. So even more so, you have to take the technical jargon out, and you have to speak to them on what matters. So for civilians, it matters a lot when you talk about your bottom line dollar. They can't go in the red. If a civilian organization goes in the red, they go out of business. That's how it works. So if you optimize a $14.2 billion network, that means a ton to them. Military, it depends on who's reading it. Um, I would argue that a $14.2 billion network, there's $80 billion aircrafts out there and acquisition programs and multi-million dollar so-and-sos. To tell me what Uncle Sam spent money on something doesn't really appeal to me. Now, if you saved money or you optimized a certain thing and did a certain thing, that speaks more to me. But telling me that you manage a billion-dollar program, I'm going to give you a thumbs up and I'm going to probably move right past it. So it just depends on who the reader is. Every reader is different, though. That's what I want to stress there. But the one thing, and I'll go back to story time to add to here, I realized the hard way is I mentioned before at Moonlight a little bit, and I teach for a community college. I also teach project management on the side. And for the community college, I got my first master's in 2016 in aeronautics. And at that time, I was working for a very specific unit who did amazing things. I had my airframe power pilot license, a master's degree. I said, who would not want to hire me to go teach? I had very big ego. Some might say I still have an ego, but we'll push that to the side. I had a very big ego. So who would not want to go hire me? Well, I got humbled really quickly when I sent out over 50 different resumes to different schools and colleges and didn't get a single callback. Then I changed the verbiage in my resume to do a thing. And I thought I'd yield success when I got a couple callbacks. Turns out they only called me back because they had seen Air Force One in my resume. And they're like, oh, well, we're going to give this guy a call and try and talk. No, I'm not going to talk to you about the plane. That's not going to happen. Um, that's not how this works. And then I started getting very frustrated. So 2016, completed the degree. 2019 now, frustrated. 3 years of applying to different schools, tired of getting rejected. Um, kind of learned a little bit about the transition process, a very little bit. The service members who transition experience a whole different thing. I got a small taste of it while I was in. Now, I reached out to somebody in my network and I asked for some help. They were a human resources person at the University of Southern California, USC, pretty big school, pretty good school. Um, and I asked for some help. I said, you hire teachers all the time. Can you please do me a solid? Look at my resume and give me some feedback. I'm not asking you to write it. I'm not asking you anything. Just give me feedback. And she said, Scott, I'd love to help you out. Let's go back and forth for a little bit on it. I said, sounds great. I thank you for your time and I truly appreciate you. Went back and forth for a couple of weeks. We changed my entire resume. And what we changed my entire resume to, and I didn't fully understand it at that time, was a performance statement. I tried my best to convert my Air Force bullets into statements and make them make sense. But this is, if you look back and look at a resume, what did you do in that job? And what was the impact or result of it? If I could rewind all of my slides or rewind this video back, that would be the very definition of what a performance statement is. What did you do? And how did you do it? And what was the impact or result of it? Sounds like a performance statement to me. So I pause here for a second and I really stress this point home because all of us are going to take off the uniform. I got it right now. I'm not even wearing a uniform, but all of us are going to take off that uniform and we're going to have to put together a resume and we're going to have to go compete for jobs. Practice your craft now in writing because these performance statements are going to help you with your resume. They're going to help you reach a different set of audience. Okay. Practice your craft now. Get better at the writing piece so that way you don't have to pay somebody hundreds and hundreds of dollars to write your resume for you. There are plenty of different companies that are out there for free and they will help you network. But if we all, by me, everyone in the military goes to flood those individuals, they don't have the capacity. And some people just like to write it on their own. This helps, I promise. When I submitted my revised resume out, I had 7 schools call me back. I'm spiteful. I went with the first one, and I've been with them for over 6 years now, going on 7 years this July. So it works. It works really well. Okay, so that is my version of black belt bullet writing from Mike Vitri. We condensed it down to a course that we call performance statement writing. Now, from what we talked about, we hit the basics of what a performance statement is, some writing mechanics, some writing pitfalls. We jumped into data and we jumped into readability. Now you have two QR codes on your screen. This QR code in the bottom left-hand corner, that QR code is to get you back to the app. So if you missed scanning it up front, you're like, wow, this and what I'm telling you really spoke to you. Um, there's a chance to go get some of that information again, right? You just scan that QR code, it'll take you back to the app. Now, if you want to provide feedback, I love feedback. I can't get better at what I do teaching and presenting this information without feedback. I'm sure the folks at AFSA would love to hear feedback on this course. So this feedback is directly for me. They might have their own feedback, but if you scan this QR code, um, you're going to get asked three questions about me and my ability to teach. I'm asking very, please give me the feedback because this course has evolved off student-driven feedback. So how I taught this course and how it looked in 2023 is very different than obviously how it looks now, 3 years later. So that's through feedback. We can't get better unless we give each other feedback and it's constructive and we adapt and we learn from it. So without further ado, thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning into this video. Thank you. I appreciate the detail and the effort and your attentiveness throughout this process. So without further ado, thank you and have a good day.